So you wonder what it's like in a Ukrainian village. This isn't a typical Ukrainian village. This is a remote Ukrainian village. Roughly, it is 500 kilometers from Kyiv, southwest. It's a region called Podillia. It is about not too far from the Dniester River. So this is the very beginning of the village. Behind those tall trees is the village cemetery, and we see the fields, and we are walking by on a wonderful landscape. I'll show you some of the houses. I'll show you what it looks like now in the Ukrainian village. Actually, it's a dying Ukrainian village. It's where my childhood passed. I was growing up, running on those hills and enjoying the great time. But now I see empty houses, lost gardens, lots of broken houses, lots of falling houses, just because nobody lives there and nobody comes here. We don't have the black soil here, which is so famous in this region. The soil here is clayish, and gardening is very complicated. Plus, well, we get enough rain, but even growing potatoes in these very tough, very rough and tough soils is a trial. Well, we do that. We've done that. Still doing some of it, but it's not fun at all. People in this village are living off gardening and living off their land, and people have cows, and they own, some of them, horses, drive cars. I even found a neighbor with satellite internet connection, so I'll be broadcasting some of it now, enjoying it, because now in the time of the quarantine it's the best option we can get. So maybe I may even move here for a little bit of the summertime. Now, what you can see is a result of very peaceful, very undamaged village, undamaged by civilization, let's put it this way. If you want to get lost somewhere in Ukraine, this is a perfect place to be. And roughly you can buy a house for as much as 30,000 hryvnia. Well, there is no toilet inside, definitely no utilities, electricity, yeah, gas. There is gas in the village, which is a great help. You will probably need to invest at least another 200,000 hryvnia into this into a house if you want. So what is it? Another 10,000 bucks, and then you will have a definite living space, which is in the middle of nowhere, in a perfect, ecologically clean and green place, surrounded with forest and a lot of forest life. Wild animals? I don't see any. I just saw a horse, but we have wild hogs, we have foxes, we have eagles, we have squirrels, of course, hedgehogs, no wolves, no bad predators, some deer, but you really have to be super lucky to see a deer. So this is the beginning of the village. It's early spring, May 3rd, 2020. You can hear turkeys. People have chickens here, rabbits, pigs. Here, that's the beginning of the village. Ой. So let's walk together further into the village and see what it looks like to be far, far away from Kyiv. So the industry in the village is farming and foresting, but mainly farming and poultry, pig farming, and growing different crops. Now there is a farmer who rents the land, and he cultivates the land, and he has gardens, apple gardens. Apples grow very well here. So he has apple gardens, and he has bushes with some berries, and basically that's it. Here's how people garden. Looks like in this part of the village people have better soil than in our higher part of the village, because their land is darker and blacker than ours. Lucky people. Well, it's actually part of the old dyed river, so no wonder the soil is black here, because there are several ponds, and there is a stream that goes. Here's a willow tree, so willows grow definitely when there is water, and there are several ponds, of course forgotten ponds with crayfish, but they are lost ponds and nobody cares, but we catch crayfish there. Now, as we walk further into the village, we can see more houses and the happy voices of dogs calling for attention. It's amazing to hear so many birds, so many voices of the wild forest, and the fresh air with zero pollution. It's -100 pollution, because if a car passes by here, well, something has to happen. People stay at home, enjoying their time. Now it's a day off. People will start working tomorrow. I didn't see anyone wearing their masks. Neither do we. Nobody lives here anymore, and typically these are the types of houses for the Podillia region. Typical gate for the Podillia region, typical designs for Podillia region. Well, there are owners, there are people who own the house, but they either come for a very short time just to check up, or they rarely appear over here. Neighbors also take care. They look around so that bad people don't break into the house, because, well, there is a village nearby which is more populated, and there are some drug addicts over there, and there are some disaster guys, and this isn't fun at all, because they come, they break into the house, they steal stuff. So neighbors watch each other's properties so that nothing happens. Wonderful lilacs. It's a season of wonderful, very deliciously smelling lilacs, and enjoying. I wish you could feel the smell of it, but now I can only show it to you. It's another abandoned house. But look how beautiful people did. A little mirror over there, design, and people love decorating their houses nicely. And green color in house decoration is very, very popular. Someone's dog is watching us. Hello, dog. He doesn't care. Hey, I see people. And wow. All right, now I will visit my mom's friend and we'll be back with you. Oh. Oh. We have. Да, я люблю. So, I found people. Now it's a busy village. As much people as we can see. So a combination, we can see a combination of abandoned houses and pollution. Finally we have some gas. Yeah. Here is a perfectly abandoned house. Perfectly abandoned house. We can come in, we can have a look. Nobody lives here, but somebody takes care of it because you can see the wood. This wood is majorly for burning, for heating. And the lilacs, the amazing crazy lilacs. But let's go inside the house. What do we see? Sad picture of a house and walk through. You can see, well, this house is probably 100 years old. When you don't care, it falls apart. See, built in. Now it's so popular to build in shelves, but it was used before. And the house is totally made of clay. It's a special construction technique. I've seen it when I was a child. Oh, sparrows living inside. And all the broken stuff. I'll try to show it to you from somewhere. Oh. An old fireplace. And here's a broken fireplace. Interesting construction. So you can see that here people were using clay and sticks and putting clay in between the sticks and filling the walls with boards and then plastering it. Plastering also was done with clay. When I was a child, I've seen my grandma. Seen my grandma building a shed for cows, and I've seen the technology. So what they were doing for the ceiling is they were taking a stick, mixing clay and connecting clay with straw, with long straw, and then rolling straw around the stick, and then putting it in the separations between the wall and the ceiling. So stick by stick, they made a loft. And interesting design of this house, because it looks like it had two sides that were used, and sometimes people were using both clay and bricks, but bricks were also made of clay. What about here? Yes, these are clay bricks. This region is very rich on clay, all types of clay, but they were mixing horse's poop with the clay to make it stronger. Interesting technique. I don't know why horses poop, but it actually, my grandma was saying that it won't stay without horses poop. It made it more elastic, I guess. So here's what I'm talking about. See, now it's a stick with straw around it and clay, and they were using just single sticks and sticks with clay. And I've seen the whole village gathering and helping around the house to build the house, and then my grandma was cooking for people, and that was an adventure for the whole months, basically, to build something like a shed for cows. That was a big shed actually, but still, lots of stuff. And people used to paint with clay also, and you can see every year a good master had to put a little bit of clay and chalk around and paint the house. And it's like a tree, as many numerous layers of color, and you can see how old the house is. Going further into the village, we can see decent houses. Well, probably people live here and live well, hopefully. The trees were used for fencing as well, and the willow trees are especially good for it. So natural fence for the cows, basically. You don't have to fence the house for people, majorly, but since the whole village used to keep cows, so that dairy production was cultivated, and these cows go everywhere, so you have to keep fences. Now, this house has gas, and this house has, I believe, even the internet or satellite TV, so it's not so bad. You can see this yellow box, which is the gas connector for the house. Now the heating is done with gas, and the prices are actually fine. So my grandma's house is heated with gas. It was a big progress in the village. These are walnut trees. They are late to open their leaves, but that's actually good business. Once we had a big laugh because we didn't have a good harvest of potato, and my grandma was lucky to sell all her field of potato harvest for 1,000 hryvnia. And my mom took walnuts and she peeled them, and she also sold around 10 kilos or so, 10 kilos of walnuts for the same 1,000 hryvnia. And we were laughing because it's so much work to do the potato, to grow potatoes, and it was not so much work at all for the walnuts. So it was fun. So now you see a lot of traffic in the village. You can see the bikes and even cars. So isn't it amazing? The village is actually alive. Let's continue walking. See, people are here having their turkeys and growing poultry. These people are quite poor, I should say. They are surviving. Usually, if you're poor in the village, you are usually some sort of an addict. Here is another example of a very poor house. It's a disaster of a house. It has always been since I remember myself. But it's sad and pathetic situation. I was lucky to come to my neighbors, and their house is actually alive and very nice, and they have flowers, they have cats, and look, it's typical, very typical for any house in Padilla to have flowers around, without beautiful patches, but just flowers around, because flowers on the painting of the house, flowers in front of your garden, you just look alive and you are happy when you have flowers. All this hard work becomes a little bit less hard when you have flowers growing. So how people live, you can see there is a veranda over there outside, and beautiful apple trees. Now people live here and they planted many new apple trees and plum trees. This region is also very famous for producing prune and for producing plums and growing plums. But prune was actually the gold of Padilla region, and my grandma used to collect like a ton of prune and go from here to Irkutsk, to as far as the Siberia, to sell the prune. For the whole winter she would be selling the prune and making the money, and that's how people were able to survive. It was early 80s, and that I remember when she went there. I was a young child. It was like the year 83, the year 87. It was the last time she traveled. But it was a brave woman's action, I guess. She was loading it on a train and then ordering special service, and then bravely just going there, like with my grandpa or just alone or maybe with somebody else, and then taking care of it. So history now. And then she was bringing oranges from Moscow. It was very cool, because you couldn't buy oranges so easily, but she brought a whole sack of oranges. Can you imagine? That was amazing. In a typical Ukrainian village, you always have to have straw, and it's a special shed for the straw, where you keep all types of straw, or you can see the old sticks from corn. But straw is a very practical and good material for everyday life, because when people are having cows, they are putting straw on the floor for the cows, to keep the cows clean. And as I told before, straw was used for construction and for any other outside work, to cover things in the garden or so. Yeah. I hope you enjoy my village experience and follow me with this. So you can see it's a new fence, it's a cared for garden, it's the middle of the village. There used to be a shop here, but not anymore. And twice a week there is a truck that actually brings all the necessary merchandise from groceries, from starting from like fruit and vegetables, and up to toilet paper. They bring toilet paper for sure. It's not a problem to have a toilet paper in Ukrainian village. It's a house with a very talkative granny. She She's a superstar, but we are not going to knock at her door because we won't we won't stop her talking. She used to be director of the village club, and club is everything: the library, the meeting point, and gathering point for all the village people. And she is an energizer. Now she lives in this beautiful house. And she has the garden, but she is really old. She's around 80 or beyond. Using sticks and trees for fencing, as you can see, just to protect it from cows and from other animals going. Somebody's doing work. Let's see. Христос воскрес! This is a village road. It's a disaster of a road. We spent so much difficult time going up this hill. But now we took some stone and we fixed this road, so it's easier now to drive, because in winter it's a trial. It's an off-road, big off-road experience. I would like to introduce to you a flower which is very, very significant. It's called barvinok in Ukrainian. And this flower is used for the bride's crown. It's an evergreen plant, and when it's a wedding time, girlfriends are taking small leaves. They put 3 leaves together, and they are taking red cotton, and they are making the crown. They put 3 leaves together, and they sew it with a red cotton, and this symbolizes eternity, it symbolizes youth, and it symbolizes evergreen life. And it's a beautiful flower bed with barvinok. I love it, just love it. I even planted it near my office, but the soil is so dry that it doesn't grow much at all. But here it has enough sun, it has enough moisture, and it's enjoying its hill, fully enjoying the hill. This is an example of careful burning useless sticks. See, it didn't cause a fire. The guy even covered it. It still smells with the fire, but he put the fire, he burned the useless stuff. And see, this guy now, he's fixing the garden, and he's making some order here, but he doesn't live here. He came for a couple of days and is taking care of the place around. And recently we had big fires around Kyiv, and it was a careless burning of this kind of trash. But people now are fully aware of this disaster and try to make it as careful as possible. So deeper into the village, this is my grandma's street. My niece is walking above. She's being my company for this trip around the village, and she enjoys it too. Other empty houses. Here's a house of a well-off guy. He was really rich, and nice water well here on the right with squirrels, figures of squirrels on top, and nice and beautiful design of the house. And as you can see, nobody lives here anymore. His children live in the nearest town, and they come here from time to time to check up and for a little bit of a party as well. Now I'm going to show you another very special house. Physically handicapped people were everywhere, and this village had a lady who couldn't talk. She was numb, and she died long time ago, and her daughter lives in Ivano-Frankivsk, but she came here and she cleaned up the house. Here's the house. Oh, it's an amazing smell of lilacs. And you can see this yard is actually cared for. And neighbors are agreed with to come and pick up some apples and take care of the garden. So now we can see an example of a house that is dying with love. Our clay roofs, but this house is made of clay, but it's plastered with cement. And every house had a natural refrigerator. My grandma is still using it, but this one is old and abandoned. But now we can have a look. It's deep, and it goes far deep, and you can see that nobody lives there, but it's a very good way to preserve things. And we keep our potatoes and all the gardening stuff there, and milk and cheese and everything. If the house isn't locked, we can probably come in, but it is locked. Ah, sad. Is it? Yeah, it's locked. Oh, well, the house is dying with love. It's locked. Somebody is caring about this house, because I see a fresh fire ash, and the garden is actually clean. So inside, the lady has whitewashed the walls and took very nice care of the house, just hung the pictures, put the beds. Of course, there is nothing inside. She took all the belongings, but the walls are there, and it is so nice. It's blue, it's clean, it's like a museum. See, as I was saying, here's another house of a person that loves her place. She lives here in the summer, so she brings her grandchildren. She used to own a cow, and milking the cow, and even sharing her milk, her cow's milk, with us. So let's peep inside. It's locked, but we can see here the flowers, of course. There is no cow anymore, but the house stays there. We'll see these neighbors in the summer. As we continue walking, we see more houses, but basically there are 4 people living on the street. Every house used to have people here, but not anymore. There is hardly 30 people living in the entire village. Fortunately or unfortunately, or it's a temporary thing, if the quarantine continues growing, or if the world is hit with a huge crisis like it is, probably we'll come back to the village and we'll be living off the gardens. Let's see. Well, let's make sure we connect to internet in the right time then. Beautiful scenery. Beautiful, beautiful. Amazing time. Here is another house that is dying, but it's dying without love. There is a story of the guy. He is somewhere in Siberia. Hope he's still alive. He's a very strong and powerful man, and he built this house for himself and for his family, but he could never find a wife. And his brother is taking care of it sometimes. He made a barn for animals here. and a storage place, and here's a kitchen with 2 windows. But I remember him living here maybe 3 times in my entire life when I was coming here to see my grandma. Said a water well, an existing water well. Every household has a water well. And is this one working? Yeah. Look. Wow, it's deep. Should be roughly 14 meters deep. Water is deep in this place. And now we see that this water well is built with stone, and there were several water wells on this street in the 60s, and people from the whole street were coming to this water well to take water. But later people got a little bit wealthier and everybody could make their own water well. It's not artesian well, but our water well is 14 meters deep, and it collects the groundwater. Sometimes it gets very shallow and we are having some sort of shortage of water, but it's full of salts. We bring drinking water from filters from the city. So we continue our village trip and go to the top, to actually the heart of the universe, my grandmother's home. And going up the street, we can see old and forgotten houses that are used as just sheds for whatever stuff is left in the village. And we see houses of hardworking people. For example, here on the left, behind the blue fence, is a house of a local farmer. He's renting land from the village, and he's investing his time, effort, and a lot of hard work into the well-being of his family. The man owns a tractor, and he drives around and cultivates land, and he helps other people do a lot of farming work. And he's very, very reliable and helpful person in terms of giving other people who are mostly retired lots of support and help with the technical devices he owns, bigger and smaller tractors. Here, he's a single guy. Also, his sons are married, but he's a single guy, and well, I don't know, he's not coming to a matchmaker. Well, famous apple trees and plum gardens are everywhere. Here is another house of hardworking people. Look, you can see the size of the house, and they have all the utilities. They own chickens, and they also have bees, and the beehives now these days are suffering a lot. The bees are dying because of the industrial farming going on in their district. When industrial farmers are spreading the pesticides and herbicides in the fields, bees die in huge numbers. That's why the honey production in the village is going to zero these days. Now here's another hard-working person's house. The guy, the real owner of the house, an old man, used to be a miner. He came from the Donetsk region here. He worked hard there, and that's how he was able to build such a beautiful and amazingly well-decorated modern house here. But he died when I was 10 years old. I remember what a big tragedy it was. But life is life. Well, this is where we used to take our water when we didn't own our own water well. So the neighbors here The man and woman died, and their children sold their house for as much as 30,000 hryvnia to the richer neighbors, and now they are just keeping their animals inside of the barn, but the house is empty. And this is the house I was talking about. This is where my childhood passed, and the greenhouse on top of the hill and the beautiful forest right there in front of you is where I grew up. All the summers, all the spring, autumn, and winter vacations. So welcome to my grandmother's house. The famous flowers. Yeah, my grandma used to plant those flowers even in the garden when near her patches, just to look at the beautiful carnations and tulips and whatever she had. The roses, the water well, which is 14 meters deep, and now we are using the pump, but this wheel is actually a workout device. The house isn't big enough. We recently installed the bars because we don't spend winters here. And this is the very important construction, because the first door on the left was supposed to be a garage, but it was never used. No car has ever entered this building, this room. But the room next is the storage room. Then comes the room for technical devices, and the ultimate right door was a place where a cow lived. Not anymore. We sold the cow a long time ago, but it was our producer. We have 3 cats around the house, and it's how we wash hands. It's very, very primitive. It's very, very easy, and it's not super hygienic, but this is what it is. Here is the refrigerator. Well, to be right, a cooler, a local cooler. If you go down, you can see what the family has been able to store for the winter. Pickled everything. Beetroots for borscht, tomatoes and meat and cucumbers, whatever it is. This barrel here is storing pickled apples. They are so crazy delicious. Of course, we have lots of cucumbers, and there is a forest, so there is lots of mushrooms here. And, well, we don't see well, but there are potatoes and whatever left from the garden. Village life is quite primitive, and especially the hygienic stuff is not so fun and easy, but you use whatever tools you have. Well, we make some kebabs here, and we made a swing, and this is the garden, and we really enjoy being here. We have some raspberries here, the toilet. Well, it's a Ukrainian tradition to have a toilet outside your house. It's not practical when it smells. For the night, we take a back bucket, but this is the toilet. Well, it's not funny, but it is what it is, right? We have a bucket there, and then we throw it to the forest, so the forest gets very well fertilized. This is a device for smoking meat. It's a barrel with a fireplace there on the left, and my mom burns fruit wood, and then it produces very delicious smoked meat. So here's the garden. The total household has 60 sotka. I will have to convert it. Can't do it so fast, but a little bit more than half of a hectare of land. And right here is the forest. The forest where we can pick mushrooms. Here is the wood for the fire, and all sorts of wood for the fire, of course. And a big lawn for kids to play. And my mom said that she actually planted these trees in the forest with my dad. And it's a nice, romantic, and cool story. So, when you're in the forest surrounded by beautiful voices of the birds, you forget all this city life. You meditate and you love life. It's about loving life. It's about enjoying what we've got. It's about loving what you have and not crying over what you don't have, I think. Happy roosters, of course, and happy village life.